Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud. And I can't.
I sold Amazon, but it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. I would like to just jump right in this.
Yeah, sure.
And here's what I want. I got some questions, and there's some things I want you to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But you're an interesting one for me. I've done like 200 of these in the last couple of years, and you've been on this magical list that I have for a very long time. And the reason is
like a unicorn.
A little bit. You're kind of a unicorn for me. And here's why. I knew about you, I think, 12 years ago.
Wow.
Through a friend of mine named Joey Lawrence.
Yes. Yeah. Back in the day, late 2010, just before that, maybe.
I would have guessed maybe even before that. I don't really remember. I'm getting old, so my memory's failing me more and more. But you and him were like these wonderkind young photographers that were just crazy. And everyone thought, who are these kids, basically, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I know that you're young, which means 10 years ago.
I hit 30 now. I don't know if I can be called young anymore. Well, I don't know if I like that. I used to be always like, hey, I wish I was 30. Like, I wish people would take me seriously. Like back then, had you have said, hey, you're a kid, I'd have been like, damn it, no, I'm not a kid. But now I'm like, wait, I was a kid. I totally was a kid. but
that's exactly one of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about, which is why I was setting it up, and you beat me to the punch, which is great. You went right where I was wanting to go, because you were so young. And I wonder if that was an issue with you, if that was a struggle for you when you were that young. And now you can say, yes, I was a kid. But at the time, you did not in any way, shape, or form wanted to be looked at or treated that way, right?
Yes. I think it was so hard because I'd done photography since I was 14, and I took it seriously. Like my mom always says, like, you kind of kept out of trouble and didn't go through that like crazy teenager stage because you had photography as a distraction. So I feel like, yes, like I always took my job seriously, but it was frustrating because I didn't feel like, I still look younger than I am, but back then you can imagine, like, I'm 14 when I first pick up a camera. I start my business at 17. I'm a child still, essentially. And then going to, clients and reaching out to people, or like doing little talks, people would be like, you're still a kid. I remember like, at the time I was doing fine art photography, and I went to see someone about putting my fine art prints in a gallery in London. I was like, oh my God, this prestigious gallery in London. Like, is this going to be my break? And then I remember the lady there looking at me being like, well, we can put you in the affordable art fair. And I was like, I don't want to be in the affordable art fair. I always used to be like, my dream is here, and I know it's going to take a while to get there, but I'm serious about this, guys. Like, I put my heart and my soul and my blood and my sweat and tears into this. So yes, I did face a lot of rejection, and I got told I was too green, and it was frustrating. I remember doing an article, I think it was for Bowen's, because they were the first sponsor I had. And in the magazine, I ended up just going off about like how I was frustrated, and the title was Young, Talented, and Annoyed. And I was like, wait a minute, like, I was telling you about my frustrations.
Annoyed.
And
That's even the word annoyed doesn't that just make it seem like,
what about my work?
Right. Well, that's okay. So that's what I want to get to, right? Yeah. So you kind of went through this long period, or this long season, where you suffered kind of a reverse ageism, or maybe it's still considered ageism because you're young instead of old, right?
Yeah.
So what were the things that you felt like you had to do, right, beyond just the quality of your work? Because it seems to me like a lot of people wouldn't even get that far, or couldn't get that far, because all they saw was a 17 or 18-year-old girl in their minds.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I feel like going back, thinking about what I did. Well, first of all, I put on a more posh accent. You only understand.
Did you really?
The
Seriously?
people that are in England will only understand this because I'm from the north. And in the north, when you're going to meet with people in London, it's like, my accent now is a mix and a hodgepodge of being in over a transatlantic accent. But, thinking back then, I had more of a Birmingham accent. So you've got to think of like Peaky Blinders, right? Because that's where I'm near where I'm from. So if you had that accent and you go to London and you're going to Condé Nast and you're going to meet people in the industry, you kind of don't want, you want to seem like you're kind of in this class of artists that could be working for these prestigious magazines. So I think without noticing, like my friends and family notices, I started to adopt a posher accent, as we call it. But I also dressed in heels because I felt like it was more, I was taller, I was, presenting, so it like the posture. And I tried to act older. So, I can't avoid the whole, when I walk into a room, I look like a young child still. Yeah. So the first thing I would do in a meeting would be like, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years already or 4 years already, and this is who I've worked for. So I would almost break down any of the questions, like answer the questions within the introductory part, where it just kind of broke the ice a little bit, because if I didn't do that, I noticed I had a few times where people would look through my book and go, oh, so who have you styled for? And I'd be like, I'm the photographer. And they would be embarrassed and I would be embarrassed. So I kind of made it a point to be like, hi, I'm Lara, I'm the photographer. I still do that when I get to set.
You brought that up right up front. You
right
still
up
do
front.
it.
And I'd be like, I look like I'm 12 years old, but I've been doing this 5 years. So, I kind of answer anything that I can think they were thinking in their minds. And when I joined an agency when I was 17 for the first time, and then 18 with a different agency that was kind of more of a professional level in London, I told them these frustrations. So actually he used that to my advantage, and he'd say like, Lara's one of the next big things in photography. She's young, but she's done this. And he kind of made a point about it and turned it on its head, which helped, because then people
was
were
that
like,
a big turning point then when you switched to an agency that was maybe more had your back?
Yes, because I finally felt like I'm a professional and I'm finally represented by someone that gets it. Whereas before I was like, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I as professional as I think? Of course, I still had a lot to learn. I made a lot of mistakes back then.
Well, you had doubts yourself because of the lack of maybe somebody that was really walking beside you in a really big, powerful way. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And when you do have those voices alongside you that are kind of going along and agreeing with the journey that you want to go on. I remember being at college. In England, we do 2 years of college as a diploma. It's not like university. You do high school, then I did 2 years of a diploma in photography. And I remember it was like, okay, where is everyone going after college? And what are you doing? And I was like, I'm going to be a fashion photographer. I've already registered my business. That was my goal. And I remember my teacher just being like, you can just be an assistant, And I was like, no, like, I don't want to be just an assistant. So I remember just having that voice in my head that like, ooh, like maybe you should have assisted, or maybe you should have waited a bit. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe you're too green. So finally, when you get those voices behind you that are like, we believe in you. And my parents have always been big believers in what I do. And that's always been a big pushing point, without their trust. And in the beginning, like, without them saying, yes, go and do something creative, I probably wouldn't have done what I do.
Were they the key? Were they the reason? Like, I hear you, essentially you ran into a lot of roadblocks and a lot of people belittling you or condescending you, maybe not even maliciously, maybe even just ignorantly, doing what they were doing and saying what they were saying. And at the very least, at the beginning, it sounds as though you had a lack of support from a lot of people except your parents.
Yes, absolutely. My parents, both creative. Like my mom was a makeup artist for Mary Quant in England, just on the counters and stuff, but it was a very high-end job at the time. And she kind of got her way there and proved her talent. And I just come from a family of creative people. And, to say to them, I want to do something creative and have an interest that early, it was like, okay, like do it. They would always review my work. They would always tell me when things weren't good and when things were good. So they were also,
how important is that though?
So important. Like I didn't like to hear it sometimes, but my mom would be like, that's not your best, but like, keep pushing forward.
How awesome is that?
Yeah, it's really amazing that they were able
Your
to tell
mom
me.
says
My mom
that's
still
not your
does
best.
it. She's like my worst critic, but also I'll do a shoot and show it to my mom, and if she likes it, I'm like, same as my husband now. Like if he likes something, I know it's good, but he'll tell me when things are not good. And I appreciate that. And now
They
I
sound like your
surround
best
myself.
critics.
Yes, and I surround myself with very honest people now, which is really important. But yeah, I think that when I had their agent and he was finally like, okay, this is where we're going to go. This is where I see you go. And I believe in you. I was like, okay, finally I have, someone behind me. And also I'd say another part was meeting Sue Bryce, the photographer. A lot of you will know who she is watching. And we met on a workshop in Australia, like I'd say 2011, 2012. I think it was actually early 2012. And she was one of the instructors. There's three of us and we connected right away. And she's like, you've got to do Creative Live. And I was like, me, an online workshop? Like I've only just started doing in-person workshops. Like again, those voices, like I'm not a teacher. Like, I've only been in the industry this long. And she was like, I believe in you, you can do it. And I did it. And I was like, wow, like, just to have another voice behind you like that is like, I can see your talent and what you're capable of. Sometimes you do need that in your career, people to kind of see that in you. And whether it's a little push or a big push, it really does help.
The interesting thing that strikes me as you talk is that it sounds as though during those years you almost had this conflict, this internal struggle that I don't want to be looked at as a kid, but wait a second, I am young, and and maybe that's the lack of confidence because you didn't have because you did have the people that were talking down to you, right, or belittling you, but you kind of had this little war going on.
A little war, yeah. And it came from also being bullied at school. And I think I meet a lot of creatives and we're all the same. We're like, I was bullied at school because I was a little bit different and I was a little bit gothic and was a little, dark hair. And that's when I started to get into photography, more of the fine art, kind of darker art kind of things initially. And I think it was that internal, like I remember getting on the website DeviantArt back in the day. And it was like, that was kind of what drew me into photography. And people would be like, what is that? What are you doing? Are you on DeviantArt? Are you looking at photography? Like you want to be a photographer? You want to be in front of the camera? Who do you think you are? And it was like that internal struggle was there from the beginning of people being like, no. But then, you've got my parents who are encouraging. And it's like this weight of like, but I think one can't exist without the other. I think you do need, I think the most successful artists are also the people that have had to fight a little bit through some kind of journey. And we face a lot of rejection in the commercial industry and anyone does if they want to fight to be somewhere. So I wouldn't change anything. Like it's made me a stronger person for sure.
Who do you think you are?
I am just a photographer that loves what she does. And, the moment that I stop loving what I do, I wouldn't do it anymore because it doesn't matter how much I was to earn from a job. Sometimes to me, it's more about, I could do a very boring job and earn a lot of money from it and then just still feel a little bit defeated afterwards. And it's because I'm an artist. I started from the beginning with hardly any money for a good 5 years and just my heart was into it and I created. So I'm not saving any lives. I always say that I'm a photographer and an artist and very lucky to still be doing that. Right.
Tell me this, my daughter is 11 and she's she's helping out mom. My wife's the photographer. So my daughter's she's the assistant. She has been for a little while. She's getting more and more excited about it. I could see her going that route because she's creative too. What do you say going through that, what you did, what do you say to little kids and girls in particular, really? Because I think that there's even an extra level of struggle there. There are extra set of challenges, certainly unique challenges, I think, for girls. I have a son too, and my daughter, her challenges are unique.
Definitely.
And so what do you have to say to little girls that are kind of right on that cusp? They're finding out who they are and what they love. And they look at somebody like you and they think to themselves, I feel like they could think to themselves, I could do this. Laura did this. I could do this. What do you say to them?
I would say that no dream is too big. Like if you have a dream to be something, all it takes is steps to get there. And, you know, you may not come from a lot of money. You may have limitations. You know, I come from a working class background. I didn't have a lot of money in my pocket to be able to afford my initial equipment. So I created with what I had. It's possible. I think that's the main thing. And it's possible in a world where women right now are being empowered and put in good positions. Like it is the best time to be involved in a creative industry. And to realize, like, if your dream is to be a photographer and live in a big city, you can get there. You just need to, you know, start taking little steps, whether it's a little step to join in an online community and giving yourself personal projects to do once a month, and just keep giving yourself little challenges. Like, whether it's, okay, this week I'm going to copy the shoot that I really like from this photographer and learn a little bit more about lighting. And today I'm going to experiment with, you know, some makeshift gear at home to get to that next step. And it is, you know, I feel like as women, especially when we're growing up and we're teenagers, I have a 15-year-old sister. So the last few years it's been very similar with her, and trying to figure out where she wants to go. And I'd say that how we've been dealing with that is listening to her interests, but also making her aware that what is out there, and thinking of the next 5 to 10 years in the industry, and thinking, is it realistic if she wants to get into retouching, for example, because things might change. So kind of giving her a perspective on what's attainable, where she is, location, if she really wants to do it, because you don't also want to force your children to do things you want to do because you want them, you know, it's that balance between they've got to kind of take some level of interest. So I think it really is just giving them some tools and inspiration and encouraging them along their journey.
So you kind of have a protege. You're kind of in a position where you're a mentor to your sister right now. And she's kind of right at that age that you were, where you were really starting to like come into your own regarding photography. Because it sounds like you had a pretty good idea really young that this is what you wanted and that this is what you were going to do. Yes.
I feel like it's because I didn't have anything else to focus on. Like I found it early and I was like, okay, what else am I going to do? Child development. I did that at school, but you know, I'm not that interested in that. I'm not interested in science stuff. Like I just fell upon it, and I was very lucky to do that. And my sister, who's a couple of years younger than me, Adele, she ended up doing hairdressing, and she's amazing at everything she puts her finger to. Like if you say, can you sew this, she'll just go off and do it. Whereas it takes me a moment. And Adele is like, you know, me and Adele have also both been inspirations to my younger sister, Karis, because, you know, she's looking up to two sisters who have achieved something and come from a small town. And it's almost in a way for her that she's confused, because she's like, do I go into hair? Do I go into photography? Do I go into illustration? She's like spoiled for choice. Whereas we were like, well, let's just try something and see where it goes. But it's definitely, I think that the foundation is really just having encouragement and a community around you. Whereas I didn't have community of friends where I lived, I had virtual friends. So online communities really helped me back in the day. And challenges, we would challenge each other and we would connect and we would chat and help each other get through some bad times. So I have a lot to thank for those early communities that I was on.
How do you handle the detractors? How do you handle the people that are jealous? How do you handle the people that are unhappy for whatever reason and project it on you because you're young, because you're successful, because you're really, really good at what you do? How do you handle that? Because it must come. You must see it.
I saw it a lot more when I started out, because I put myself as the face of my artwork. So I was doing self-portraits, and it also helped me. I did it just because I didn't have confidence to use anyone else, but because you're putting, it's kind of like selfies now, right? Girls will always get attacked because of that. My sister does. So I always used to get like, why are you using yourself as a model? Like, you know, do you love yourself? Why? And
So
it
you
did
love
get to
yourself
me.
like that's
Like I remember being at school and guys were like, are you trying to be a model? What are you trying to do? And I was like, it's just a way of me expressing my artwork. I don't have anyone else to photograph. And it hurt. Like in the beginning, that really hurt because, you know, the artwork that I was creating was everything to me. It was my life. And when people would pick it apart and make it seem selfish, like I was doing it just for me and to put my image out there, it was frustrating. But I don't get it as much, but now and again, I will get those comments online, usually from like older male photographers that just face value, look at me and my work and go, oh, she's had it easy, or like, you've obviously come from money, or, you know, they don't look or research and see the 16-year journey that it took from me to get from here to here. But I've learned to just become stronger. Like I said, I surround myself with very confident people that are happy within themselves and also are very honest and supportive. And I feel like I don't get it as often because I choose not to surround myself with people that are insecure and negative.
What are your hopes for the next 16 years, both in business, but also personally? What comes to mind right away when you think of the next 16?
I would almost I'd say, I hate saying the word, I'd like to leave a legacy of something because I feel like I'm not that old yet, but I would like to be not remembered either, because I definitely am going to live a lot longer, but almost like people will remember me as someone that's been helpful to the community of photographers and encouraged people to get into the commercial side of the industry. You know, I'd obviously like to say like, oh, I like to be remembered and known for the work I produce because I love to, you know, shoot women in an empowering way. You know, if it's a woman in a suit, but she still looks beautiful and feminine, like that's kind of what I love to do. And I feel like that comes from me as a person who also is very feminine, but can also be strong. And I like to put that in my work. So I'd like to be known for that work I do in the next 16 years, continue that body of work. But really, I think in a mentorship way and as an educator, be known as someone that helped give, especially women, the confidence to get into this industry and gave them the tools and the knowledge, since that wasn't out there when I started, through my education, and hopefully give them a little bit of hope wherever they are in the world to dream a little bit more. How do you, when you consider the feminine piece and the strength piece, you said, but also be a little bit strong. How do you make it like at the forefront of your mind when you're teaching, even when you're actually on a shoot and you're interacting? Because it seems to me like the challenge a lot of times is, a strong woman can mean that she's not nice, right? I'm trying to not use the words associated with that, but I hate that, and especially, and I hate it now more than ever because of being a dad again of my little girl. She's what comes to my mind, and I don't want that for her at all. I don't want strength to be associated with being mean. Because it's not, right? No, not at all. What do you do for yourself to project that and try to have that be a positive thing, which in reality it is, right? I'm a woman, I'm feminine, and I'm strong, and there's all of those are related. It's not like there's a weird thing happening here, but all of those are related. It's funny because you said that, and then it just reminded me of a post I posted the other day. It was a picture of myself talking about my courses, and some guy said, I would hate to get on your wrong side when you're angry. Sorry, you probably hear the sounds outside because we are in New York, and even though my windows are closed, it's so noisy. But this guy posted on He said, I would hate to get on your wrong side? Yeah, I would hate to get on your wrong side or like know you when you're angry. And I was like, what? And I feel like a lot of men are intimidated by women that are successful and confident and seem like they have their shit together, basically. Yeah. And I get that sometimes, like on the comments, and I think back and I feel like in the positive way, like women are not just seen in the background. Like women can be feminine and pretty and dress up, but it's not for anyone else, it's for themselves. They can be strong and confident, but it doesn't mean to say that they're difficult. It means to say that they know what they want. Right. So I feel like I can't change someone's perspective. But what I can do, I think people get surprised that when they don't work with me and they've met me on set, they go, oh, you're actually very nice. And I go,
that is something else.
Oh, like well, you're blonde and, you come across very confident online. And I'm like, well, no, like, yeah, I might dress up for myself and I am confident, but I'm also very nice. And I know how to rule a set, but I'm not bossy. Like, I know how to, go about my day without.
I think sometimes it's okay to not be nice, isn't it? Is it not sometimes okay to not be nice?
I mean, if you're having a bad day or if someone's pushed your buttons, then it's okay to, not be nice. But for people that are not deserving of your niceness, but
there's also that.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway,
but, there's always going to be perceptions, but I do my thing and I'm nice, and I'd like to say I'm easy to work with and very considerate of my team. And my clients know that, my team knows that, and that's what I care about first.
Tell me this, what are the biggest differences between, we'll just say, London and New York City? Like, what are the things that come to your mind? Because you're very familiar with both areas of the world, so to speak. What comes to your mind with that? In
business or just in general?
Well, I'd like both.
Okay,
I'd like both in business and personally too.
London is very picturesque. It's very clean. New York is a bit grittier, but people are very friendly and chatty. Whereas like English people in general kind of keep to themselves. It's just kind of who they are. I'd say that in the business side, I would say that there's more editorial, more creative opportunities in London, as in like the magazines are a bit more accessible. There's a lot more independent magazines. For those who are just starting out, I think it's very easy to get your feet there, especially in the commercial industry. I'd say that, I haven't been there, like living there for 10 years. So I don't know how the industry has changed in terms of opportunities, but with the movements and everything happening lately, a lot more opportunity has been given to different people of ethnicities, ages, which I think is excellent, and women as well. In New York, I found that the difference here was that it was very, very competitive because you're talking about a country. Everybody flocks to New York and, and also LA, but you've got two main cities on the East and West Coast. Everyone that wants to get into the industry flocks here. So I did find it very hard at first because I'd already found my feet in London early on. And that was hard to rebuild again, but I also liked the challenge. I feel like in New York, like you can kind of come from any background. You can come from anywhere, whether you've got, no money or whatever, or, it doesn't matter what family you're from or what accent you have. Having a British accent here helps though. And then
I bet it does.
Yeah, it did really help in the beginning. Now my accent's kind of in between. So people are like, are you Australian? I'm like, no. But I'm like, I fought away from this like accent thing, and now I've come back to being asked if I'm Australian.
When you go home, does it come back with a vengeance? Does it like if you're there
it comes
for like
home? I pick up, if I'm around my Australian friend Christy, I start sounding like her. If I'm around my parents, if I'm drunk or on the phone to them. There's the two things. Not that I get drunk that often. A red wine now and again, and it's like, whew. But, it comes back, and my husband laughs and jokes. He's like, the accent's back. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it has. But I don't realize, it's just.
You don't even know. Yeah, it's unconscious.
I don't even know. Yeah.
Tell me this then. What are the best parts of who you've always been? You think of home, you think of where you've come from. What are the best parts of who you've always been and the best parts of who you have become? Considering even the changes in location and geography, you've been in New York for a long time now, but where you came from, and I'm thinking about your parents again and your upbringing and the strength that you've derived just from them. Like, what are the best parts of who you've always been and the best parts of who you have become? What are those parts? What do those parts look like in you? It's
funny because I don't think I've changed that much. I think that I used to be very shy, and I would say that I've always been very loyal. That stuck with me. So best parts of what I was before, very loyal, hardworking, it's always hard to talk about yourself, isn't it? But I feel like I've just become more confident, and I feel like that's just because also I've with age and just working in this industry and loving what I do and surrounding myself with the right people. My work ethic hasn't changed since I started to now. Yeah, I think those are the main things, really.
What are you scared of?
Scared of flying.
Are you?
I fly all the time, but I haven't for ages.
I was going to say.
But I'm actually very scared of flying, and it's funny because clients will want to book my flights for me, but I only will fly with one certain airline because I think it's trustworthy. So I'll always be like, oh, I'll book it, it's fine, and they ended up just spending a little bit more out of pocket to do it. But I'm scared of flying. I'm scared of messing things up or not doing a good job. Every shoot I want to do, whether it's I'm getting paid nothing, I'm getting paid a little something, I'm getting paid a lot of money, the pressure of always delivering is there for me. And I'll always be nervous before a job because I always remember where I came from and what it's took to get here. And, I don't want to mess up in any way. And I think you'll find that with anyone, whether you're a dancer and you're dancing, at a major theater and you're worried about falling, you always have that in your head. But I think that's just what comes with someone who really likes what they do and wants to remain where they are in the industry.
You want to do the best you can.
Yes, always.
So, okay, tell me this. I didn't want to focus on this, and I'm glad we didn't, but I do want to address it because I feel like it's a little tone deaf if we don't. Talk to me a little bit about how 2020 has been for you, all things considered. Sure.
So I mean, like everybody, it was a little shock. I remember when my sister mentioned it in February, she'd heard on the news. My sister Karen was 14 at the time, but she's very aware of everything. And I was like, what are you talking about? This virus isn't going to come here. And I remember just brushing it off until it came to March. And then I was on jobs and I was hearing more about it. And I was on my way to England mid-March. And then I tried to go to the airport twice to get back for a job and I couldn't go. And that's when it hit me. And I was like, wow, this is real. And I'm suddenly going to have to rethink this year and pivot a little bit. But also, what am I going to do about all these events that I do? Because I had workshops booked up. So, I had to cancel all of those. And then we didn't know what was going to happen 6 months from now. No one knows when things are going to change or get back to normal, whether we do go back to a complete normal for a long time. So I remember just feeling really exhausted. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I have all of this free time. Usually I'm like, I go to London every month or 2 months. I was starting to go back regularly and it was always like, oh, I've got to fly again. I'm exhausted because I hate flying. Okay, now I've got this next shoot. Now I've got, plan this editorial. And I was just constantly like, which I perform really well when I'm under pressure. But for the first time in a long time, I had this given free time. And I was like, instead of wasting my time watching Netflix, which I did a fair amount of, I'm going to re-strategize my business. I made an education website. I thought of all the things that I didn't have time for or been able to give time to other people with my education. I, started to make presets, for example, which was in my mind for 2 years. I had on my board to create. I did all my taxes and got all of my tax things straight. All the boring stuff you can think of that you're like, you just want to cross off. I'm a master of lists. So I love a to-do list that comes from my dad who loves the to-do list. And I just would build lists every day, cleaning my equipment cupboard out, making lists of what I needed, what I could get rid of. I archived all of my work into folders by year. So all of my tear sheets, which are just the PDFs that I was given of the front covers or the articles, I printed off or I tore out of magazines and archived them. I went back and looked at old work, reminded myself of why I got into this industry. And I also started to shoot self-portraits again. So I did. Yeah. So I hadn't done it for years because for me, it was more of a journey. Like it was a means to get to somewhere. But it was great because I pushed past it. I was like, oh, this is going to take so long. I'm not interested anymore. But I pushed past that negative thought. And, I had a lot of matcha. I drink a lot of matcha every morning, tea. And
That's tea? I don't know what that is.
It's like matcha tea powder. So, because it's like instead of having a latte, which for me, I'd be like, really wired.
Yeah.
Matcha is like a slow release caffeine. So it just keeps me up because I'm not a morning person. So usually I'll be like, okay, I have my latte, put my hair up, get on with my day, just get on with it, Lara. So I was like, right, we're going to do self-portraits today and there's no excuses. So I'd almost give myself these little assignments. And then I started doing that for a little while, blogging. And then I also started a series called Creative Distractions, which was a weekly live with someone in the art industry. So it was like Mae Musk, who is Elon Musk's mom. She's a model and I did a talk with her. A guy I know from Sotheby's, a lot of stylists, makeup artists in the industry. We were all going through the same thing. So we would all do a weekly live and just say like, look, we're all going through this. What are we doing to stay distracted during this time? So for my own sanity, but to also help other people during that time. So it's gone by really quick. I have to say, like once I started treating my day like a work day during lockdown, I was like, I've got this. It's fine. It's just like every other week once I give myself assignments.
That's very interesting. You mentioned you've launched a website recently, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I launched my education website because I've been doing a lot of online education and in-person workshops for a long time, but I didn't have like a space to bring everything to. It was like the workshops are here and this is over here. So I kind of just wanted my own page where all of the educational material landed on one page and it was easy to navigate.
It's kind of a hub?
A little hub, a little creative hub of like my in-person workshops, presets, one-on-one mentoring, everything you can think of education is all on that one page.
What's it called?
Lara Jade Education.
Oh.
And it got me really...
I thought I saw something else. Maybe you mentioned earlier. I thought there was I knew you launched an education website, but I thought that there was something else that you
The
were
Portrait
just
Masters?
Well, I knew that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. The education piece is what I was talking about.
Yes.
So you have a hub where everything kind of stems from that site.
From there, yes.
Right.
So that's the main portal, and it got me really interested in education again, just to have that one main portal and to have everything in one place. But I spent a lot of time during lockdown focusing on that, and also work-wise, if we're being honest, like, there was months where I didn't have any work and we couldn't meet up for shoots, and thinking of money and struggling. Like, luckily I've been a saver for the past few years. Since moving to New York, I've been very good about saving and knowing where I want to go and where I want to put that money into my business. Right. So luckily I had savings behind me, so it wasn't like I was struggling with rent. But at the same time, I was also worried because that meant that my savings were going down and my future goals of what I wanted to do and buying a house, but also going out the door. So there was this pressure to like all of a sudden come up with a marketing plan, because I was like, okay, as soon as the doors open and we're going to be able to shoot again, people are going to want content. What can I do to safely navigate this new normal and think ahead of what clients want? Because clients are also going to be pivoting and thinking, wait, I am going to need content to get me through the next 6 months, but they might need something different from the usual. So it was me trying to figure out what I could do, whether it was shooting products on myself, which I did with a jewelry company, just so it was just me at home, or whether it's just me and my assistant. I did a shoot where we were talking to the creative director over Zoom, so they were seeing the tether screen, like having all of these things in mind so that you can, put it on a plate to the client and say, hey, I can help you during this time. It doesn't have to be done unsafely. Like, I can help you out. So that has been a big thing. And I still do that because we don't know where we're going to go in the next few months, like trying to figure out content wise what we can do during this time and focus on is really important.
Tell me this then. The other big thing that I know that has happened to you recently is that you are now an explorer of light.
Yes,
I am. Canon Explorer of Light.
I am, which was when they asked me, because I'd been working with them a little bit before that, just on social things mainly. And I spoke for them at WPPI in February when things were very normal. And
I remember that.
Yeah. And when they asked me, I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to say because I didn't expect it. I know that they've been doing some shuffling around.
Expecting it?
I just wasn't really expecting it, especially at that time. Like I thought if it was going to happen, it was going to happen in the future. So I was like, wow, okay. And it was really exciting because, you know, it happened like a few weeks back, but it kind of put that spring in my step again, because a lot of my friends are on the Explorer of Light program. Yep. My good friend, I mean, if you're in this industry, you kind of know it's like a little extended family. So it kind of, and the team is so lovely. So it was like just joining this really nice extended family, and an honor to be a part of a team like that.
Let me ask you this last question. You have a platform. You've reached a lot of milestones, again, at a young age. How cognizant are you on a regular basis? How aware are you of maybe the responsibility that comes with the platform and the influence that you have? How much of that is at the forefront of your mind on a regular basis?
I'm aware of that. Like I said, with the education stuff, what I kind of want to be known for and remembered at, I felt that, you know, for a long time, there's been a gap in the industry to particularly help women get into this field of photography and to have the confidence to step up and realize that it's a big part of that. And I was having the talk with Canon and the team some weeks ago, perhaps about thinking of mentoring, and other people have been bringing things up too, and thinking of ways that they're very open for conversation and hearing from us about what we want. And you know, one thing that I would like to do in the future, whether it's through Canon or through my own thing, is also think about underprivileged schools, women who need some confidence boosting, who don't come from money and just need to be helped with technique and mentored in some way. So that is always at the front of mind, like, what can I do? It's still kind of, you know, with COVID going on and everything, it's very hard to like put things in place, but it's definitely a 2021 thing to think about how I can kind of give back in some way through my knowledge. I always go back to how it was difficult for me as a young teenager with no funds, and a lot of people kind of being like, no, you can't. So I kind of want to be that person to help boost a few people out there who are in, especially young women in this industry, and help them forward too.
I love those intentions. Lara Jade, I can't express to you how thankful I am that you carved out some time to do this.
Of course. It's been great to chat. And like I said, just like even these little podcasts where it's like talking to a human being virtually or not is appreciated, because I'm also very aware of, like, you know, how things are spreading here, and I'm trying to kind of take my risks carefully. So even just having this nice chat is a great way to spend the day. It
was a pleasure. You know, maybe sometime we'll see each other in person. That would
hopefully
be very nice.
Another conference in 10 years from now.
Oh, have a great day, and I really appreciate your time.
All right, have a great day. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right there. It's there somewhere.